All right, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS Office Hours. Thanks for taking time to tune into the stream today, whether you are watching me live here or watching this back as a recording on YouTube. If this is your first time watching our stream, welcome. This is a live Q&A style show where I answer questions from our users about SaberSim, about DFS, whatever you guys want to talk about to help you use the product to make better DFS lineups. So the best places to ask questions and offer your thoughts are in the YouTube chat or in the Office Hours channel in Slack. If you are not already a part of our Slack community, I highly recommend it. There's great conversation going on there every single day. There's a link to join our community in the description of every past Office Hours video on YouTube. So this video, once it is a recording, will have a link to join up. But all of our past Office Hours videos already have that. You can join up, get in there straight away. Again, there's a really great conversation going on every day. Sometimes there's some follow-up after office hours or some back and forth in different channels. Sometimes I even pick out interesting conversations or topics that were discussed in the sports-specific channels to break down here on the stream. So definitely recommend that. You can always, of course, email us as well, support@sabersim.com. Shoot us an email. Let us know if you want me to answer the question on stream. Otherwise, I pick out some of my favorites every day and that come in through email and talk about them here on stream. So I am live here for a reason. I already mentioned where you can kind of ask your questions, but I just want to emphasize we do want live questions here. I want to hear follow-up questions and clarifying questions from you guys. If I'm saying something that doesn't make a lot of sense to you or you don't feel like it really answered the question, let me know. That's why I'm doing this live. I want to make sure everyone leaves here that has a question that feels like it was well answered. So we host the show Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and once a week we've been using this time slot for a strategy session. Strategy session is where we, instead of just doing live Q&A, we do a breakdown or a deep dive into a specific topic or sport or contest type, and then, of course, we do answer questions live. So we've been hitting the baseball content hard over the last few weeks with it being that time of year. The links to all of our 4 recent strategy sessions will be in the description of this video as well once it is up on YouTube as a recording. I highly recommend checking that out. They are all baseball content. Tomorrow, I'm going to have Danny on here, and we're going to be talking about dealing with weather concerns in MLB DFS. So how to take the information that we have available to us prior to lock or prior to the start of a game and make the best decisions we can possible about our approach with certain games. But also how SaberSim's tools are really particularly useful in dealing and finding edge and leverage when dealing with weather, right? There are certain strategies we can apply based on how the ownership context of a certain slate looks like, what typical lineups are looking like for a slate, where the value is on a given slate, when weather games are starting versus when the slate locks. There's a lot of edge that you can get there. Weather in general adds a additional variable. It adds additional layer of complexity to the game. And anytime we have that additional complexity added, it is often an opportunity for us to find some edge there. So really excited to talk to Danny about that a little bit more tomorrow. Again, that will be here, 2 p.m. Eastern. So if you have questions about how to approach weather, I don't think there's actually any weather concern games on the slates today, which is actually pretty nice because it's been quite a week for it. But I'm sure we'll have some tomorrow and going forward. So if you have any questions about dealing with weather games in baseball DFS, just shout it out into the Office Hours channel in Slack, and we'll make sure to make it a part of our stream tomorrow. So I think that is pretty good for an intro here. We've got a handful of questions to talk about here. We've got a handful of questions. Looks like maybe just a couple. So if you have questions, go ahead and shout them out for me now so I can get them in the queue. And we will just tackle some of the questions that have already trickled in. Let me go ahead and pull these up here. Excuse me. Okay, so we had a question come in from Liam here in support. And he said, I am building some lineups for the 3M Open. This is a golf question. First time using SaberSim for golf. Are there no percentile projections for golf? How can I lean my lineups towards ceiling plays? That's a good question. Let me go ahead and pull up the app here and get over to golf. And I actually didn't notice that we didn't have this up until this morning when this question came in. And that was a bit of a surprise to me, first of all. So I will double check and just confirm that we intentionally do not have percentiles. But what replaces percentiles is here instead of percentiles are these top 20, top 10, top 5 win percent make cut. I do think those are a little bit more of an intuitive golf-friendly way of looking at upside, right? This actually speaks to what is likely to happen on the course since there are such big bonuses for what happens when a golfer is, particularly when they win and particularly when they're top 5 and so on. I think it's a little bit more intuitive to look at this, and you can still kind of use, similarly to what you use percentiles for, right? Especially as a research tool, you can still take advantage of these to kind of find opportunities where maybe somebody's win rate exceeds their potential, their salary, right? Like someone like Joel Dahmen's popping off immediately, right? We've got him as the 6th, probably 7,500, and is the 6th highest win equity golfer in the field, right? You can still get an idea of where maybe certain golfers' upside outpaces their salary or their point projection if they're maybe particularly a high upside play by using these. I think that's the best way we've kind of talked about using percentiles here on stream anyway, right? Is more as a research tool, mostly because it doesn't end up dramatically giving you any different lineups when you use it in your builds. The primary tool that's going to allow you to find upside in your builds themselves is the smart diversity slider, right? So I've mentioned it here plenty of times, but always good as a refresher. What the smart diversity slider is doing is the further to the right it is, the higher the number, the smaller the size of the random bins of tournament simulations we're using to determine each player's projection when we make every single lineup, right? So at 10, it's using single tournament simulations for golf for each player's projection for each lineup. That's naturally going to allow you to find those upside plays, right? Those guys that in certain game simulations or certain small buckets of game simulations win the tournament or top 5 the tournament or top 10 the tournament, depending on their what you need from them and their salary. That upside is naturally shining through because we're looking at real ranges of outcomes of the players based on our simulation data. So I would say kind of a few different thoughts here. One, I'll double check and make sure that we're intentionally not showing percentiles here for golf, because I was actually a little surprised by that. I figured that maybe should just be here anyway. 2, the research tool that percentiles provides, or the most important tool that I think percentiles provide, is for research. And I think you can accomplish that easier by using these more golf kind of friendly percent outcomes, right? These are almost percentiles flipped on their head. So, like if you think about someone like Oosthuizen, who is going to at least top 5, 24% of the time, this is essentially his 75th percentile outcome. So that's second. And then third, use smart diversity, use high smart diversity values, which is what you'll get as your default sliders most of the time, to allow upside and ceiling potential to actually show up in your lineups. So that is what I would recommend. But again, I will follow up and make sure that there are no percentiles here intentionally, that's not just something that was forgotten. We do have some interesting ideas planned here for percentiles overall, maybe some thoughts on how they could be a little bit more useful to users, and also some content surrounding how best to use percentiles or how to think about percentiles coming, because we get a ton of questions about them. So stay tuned for that as well. All right, perfect. Let's keep it rolling. Next question. This came in from WebCV63 in Slack. And we're over back to baseball here. We're talking a little FanDuel. Let's go ahead and get flipped over here. We've got our main slide. He said, if I want to focus on specific stacks like 4-4 and 4-3 on FanDuel, is there a way to view them together by clicking on them, or can I view just one at a time? I hope this makes sense. It does make sense. It sounds like you're probably talking about the post-build page here. So let's just run a test build. running a FanDuel test build today. I say it every time. I play 95% DraftKings, so I end up coming on here all the time and talking mostly DraftKings, but I always appreciate a FanDuel question because it makes me run some builds on FanDuel. And I know there's a bunch of you guys out there playing here. So my apologies that my first instinct is always to jump to DraftKings. And thank you for everyone asking FanDuel related questions or FanDuel specific questions and getting me to move over to that site on occasion. So, but we'll let this build and see what happens here. I think just kind of getting into this here, the short answer is I don't think there's going to be a very easy way to see this in the way that you're expecting, Webb, right now. So let's go ahead and look. So let's see. Yeah. So the problem at the moment is that the way this filter works is it's an and rule, right? So we can say show only 4-3 lineups and the lineups with Lance McCullers, and that will work. But since a lineup cannot be a 4-3 and a 4-4, it is one or the other. There's not a very easy way to just isolate these and see all your 4-3s and 4-4s together. I would say this is a really hacky answer, but if you really wanted to do this, provided you don't already have exposure changes loaded in, like if you haven't changed anything, one thing you can do is just remove your other stack types and then just look at your top 4-4 and 4-3 lineups. And this is going to allow you to just look at those, get an idea. And then, of course, if you wanted to go back, you could just reset and get your lineups back. But that reset button is actually going to reset every exposure setting you've set here. So if you've set a lot of exposures for players and different stacks, you're not going to want to do that. I know that's kind of a hacky answer here anyway. There's not a very easy way to do, I think, what you're asking for here. Again, I think you could kind of eyeball it as best you can. I think this is a really good idea, though. I think all we're missing would be like an or rule. So say like, show me, I want to filter by all lineups that have a 4-3 stack or a 4-4 stack. We are also actively working behind the scenes right now on the filters to add a little bit more functionality here to make it a little more functional too, to be able to limit exposures while filtering and things like that a little bit more robustly. So I will pass this along as well because I think this is a useful idea. I can see how this would make sense. Even for like using an or rule for different things, right? Show me all lineups that have Wainwright or Robbie Ray as the pitcher. Not necessarily just both, but I can see why you might want to filter by that. Or on a slate like, so a slate like exactly this, right? Like there's going to be probably, it looks like we're planning on 2 chalkier pitchers with Ray and McCullers right now. I could see how it would be useful to say, I want to see any lineup that has either of those pitchers, because then you want to make sure that you have a less chalky stack or something like that, right? That all makes sense to me. I think this could be very useful, so I will pass that along as well. Again, not a great way of being able to do that right now beyond kind of hacking your exposures to just only include lineups of the type that you want to zoom in on briefly, or just literally just looking through and doing an eyeball test here. Unfortunately, that is where the options are limited to at the moment. So, but good question and very good idea. So, cool. Another question here from Josh. This one's on YouTube. Do you have any tips when it comes to 5-man stacks? Is there a smart way to pick from the batting order? I don't think you need to. Since this is 5-man stacks, we're going to be looking at DraftKings. So, and the reason I don't think you need to is you can actually kind of look at this here and take any batter, and you will find in general that the player correlations for certain batters are not really concentrated around the batters that are necessarily next to them in the order. They're concentrated generally. There is a little bit of a difference here, maybe 0.13 to 0.08. They're typically concentrated around who is the best hitters on the team, right? Players in the batting order have stronger correlations to other players that are good hitters because those hitters allow them more on base opportunities and more at bats, right? And that's really what, in terms of the 2 components of correlation of baseball, right? There's component 1, which is hitter 1 gets on base, hitter 2 gets on base, hitter 3 gets on base, hitter 4 hits a grand slam, and everybody scores, right? That's like that's kind of a more rigid form of correlation that we typically think about with correlation. That is secondary to the lineup correlation overall of each batter getting on base provides 1/9 of an additional at bat because he didn't get out to every other batter in the order, right? That's the bigger component of batter correlation in baseball anyway. And that's why that these correlations are not dramatically, and I realize that I'm using kind of a qualitative word here when I say dramatically, but correlation values don't change significantly based on where players are batting in the order. They're slightly more correlated to hitters next to them, but not really. So that is why, in general, I would recommend pretty much just not worrying about your batting order. We do have an option for it if you want to. You can say, I want 5 men from each of the same team, and I only want 1 through 6 or something like that. I know there are users that do that. I don't think you need to do it. And I actually think you can limit lineup constructions and stacking opportunities that have significant win equity by doing that, right? The 7, 8, 9 hitters succeed regularly. I think the last time this question came up, I had just pulled up ESPN and looked. Let's see if this works again. What I did last time this question came up is I pulled up ESPN. I looked at yesterday's games. I picked the highest scoring team and then just looked at who scored in the order. Actually, I think they did this on DK Live. Let me see. Because then you can actually get it converted right to fantasy points. And this can be pretty interesting for the purposes of looking at this here. Because you'll find that typically, man, this DK Live is like the biggest, it's like halfway there. I think it's like in some ways the best tool out there to see live scoring, to see just even game statuses. And then sometimes it just does not work. Okay, so we're going to look at yesterday because I want to see completed games. And what I'm going to basically look for is a team that like performed really well. So the White Sox, I know. And just look at their team fantasy points by batting order and just kind of see how it breaks out. But typically, I think what you'll find is that like the stacks don't, even if a 5 stack of a team ends up being optimal or wins the tournament, it often isn't the one that, see, this is what I mean, isn't the one that was just like perfectly lined up 1 through 5. Sometimes it is, obviously, but you can see right here, right? So in this particular case, 4, 5, 6 was the play, 3 stack. And those guys are all next to each other. Let's see. But you can see this is a perfect example, right? I guess one thing is that there's a pinch hitter that went off. But really, the way you would have wanted to stack this team if you 5 stacked it would have been a 1, 3, 4, 6, 8. A 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 6, 8, right? And they scored 11 runs. And you can get that stack. It's easy. It's actually a pretty easy stack to build. That's something that maybe shows up if you're just building typical lineups with 5 stack rules. But if you remove those 6, 7, 8 or 7, 8, 9 hitters, you don't have as much access to that kind of build. So I wouldn't do it. I don't think it gives you an advantage. I think it actually may provide a disadvantage more often than not. And again, the reasoning there being that the correlation between all the hitters in the order is the most important thing, rather than the correlation of the 2-hole hitter to his 1 and 3-hole batters. But great question. And again, we do have the option here in our stacking rules to set a rule like that in case you want to, or in case you want to experiment with it. So, all right. Great question. That is all I have for questions here so far. Feel free. I was going to see if there are any other questions that showed up in the email inbox here. I don't see any. So any other questions from YouTube or from Slack? Anything that anybody wants to talk about here? What do we got? We've got a golf tournament coming up here. NBA's wrapped up finally. We are about 90 days away from opening night for NBA. So I I think this is supposed to be the last season that is kind of affected scheduling wise by COVID. It's taken really like 2.5 seasons. 2.5 seasons have had their schedule affected in one way or the other by this. But this one is supposed to be a proper regular season from October to April, which is nice. It will be rather strange having NBA 90 days from now. But I'm sure I'll be stoked for it when the time comes. Obviously, a ton of baseball slates going on, so baseball questions are always encouraged. But if I don't get anything here in the next minute or so, we'll go ahead and cut it short for today. That is no problem. We will have that long strategy session tomorrow talking about baseball weather, which, again, should be a lot of fun. Try to make it live if you can, so you can ask questions and watch us live. But if you cannot, I know we're right in the middle of the day here, not always the best time for everybody. Check out that recording on YouTube when it is up tomorrow afternoon. So I don't see any other questions coming in, guys. Thank you, everybody that tuned in today. Ask questions, watch the stream, whether you watched me live or if you are watching back the recording. Appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the show. Again, last time I'll say it, 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, MLB DFS weather strategy session, how to deal with weather, how to take advantage of SaberSim, leverage the tools and the product to find an edge in slates and games where there are weather concerns. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll have Danny on talking about that with me tomorrow. If you have any questions about that topic or anything at all, pop it into the Office Hours channel in Slack or email us at support@sabersim.com, and we will get to it the next time we are live. Thank you all for tuning in here today. I do see, it looked like all of a sudden my view count just hopped up like 4 viewers. I don't know. We almost doubled our view count here at the last second. I don't know if anybody missed most of the show and then was trying to make it here and ask a quick question. But it looks like it just dropped back down. So maybe that was just a weird glitch or just a weird bump. But we'll go ahead and cut it off there. So thank you, everybody, again. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care. See ya.